Hello, and welcome to the Avengers League podcast. This is issue number 1. You're going to want to get this one signed and put in a backboard and bag. I'm Josh. I'm here with Davy and Jay.
Hey guys.
How's it going?
And as I said, this is our first podcast. Today we're going to look at a few different topics. We're going to look at Elseworlds. We're going to look at Jakeem Thunder and the Goblin King. We're also going to do a little look at Tournament 101, or how to prepare for a tournament. So I guess let's kick off with the first topic, Elseworlds, and we're going to lean heavily on our friend Davy here. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself before we get started, Davy.
Yeah, hey everybody. Thanks for listening to this first episode. I am Davy, and I think of the group here, I'm the only one who has had any significant table time with the Elseworlds set. And in addition to that, this is a set that I was really excited for. I was always a Marvel fan coming up, but I really look forward to the DC sets. And on balance, I think this is the better of the two kind of sort of OP sets we're getting this summer between What If and Elseworlds. And one thing we were just going to talk about as a group is kick around what are some of the figures that in my case are some of my favorites because I've had a chance to play them already. And for you guys, just what some of the figures that you are looking forward to playing are, because I'm sure we'll have some opportunities to get this set on the table in the next few weeks at our local stores. So I'll start and just kind of take a big one off the table. I think probably the single best figure in the Elseworld set is Al Jordan, which is a clever name for Hal Jordan. In an Arabian Nights setting, his lantern powers are expressed via a genie in a bottle, which I think is really clever. He's a great figure. Pick-a power is kind of all the rage right now. If you look at What If and going back to Joker's Wild, this is a figure that has some pick-a power. He has the ability to manipulate his stats, but he's also a figure that I can show up with on a casual Friday night and just feel good about playing like I'm not going to ruin anybody's evening.
His background is kind of like the original Green Lantern's background in a way. He's more mystical, right?
Yes, yeah, he is basically Aladdin, but Hal Jordan.
Right.
And which I think is one of the more clever ways they could have expressed a character's powers in this kind of setting.
Yeah, so we're getting tons of love for the pick a power and the mystical keyword there. That's kind of what I saw with him is another one that you can throw in there, and you've got kind of your Swiss blade there, your Swiss Army knife there, in your set.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a figure that I'm looking forward to playing. He's got good keywords, so he will be playable in some fun casual games. And I don't know how successful he will be because he is only 5 clicks, and he's going to rely on either his pick-a-power or some kind of possessor to get a defense power other than Energy Shield. But he is a hard figure to hit, and I think people will at least try to make him a force in the competitive game right now. He's 90 points for that kind of pick-a-power is not something you get in every day. All right, so that's Al Jordan. Josh, what's a figure that you're looking forward to playing or kind of have on your radar out of Elseworlds?
Well, actually, before we slide into another one, I want to ask you, why would somebody use this character or this figure? What makes him good?
I think it's the pick-a-power, and then beyond that, because obviously you've got options for pick-a-power right now. I mean, you could, even after the watch list, and we'll get into this later, you still have Goblin King available at 75 points if you wanted to play a cheaper character with pick-a-power. I think the thing that Al Jordan has going for him is he has Indomitable, which Goblin King currently lacks. And he also has a damage power that gives him Perplex, and if he uses the same character in value multiple turns in a row, it becomes a +2. He's already an 18 defense, so depending on how you set him up and what else is on the team, and for 90 points you have options, I think he can make himself a very difficult figure to kill. And I think you're going to see him played a lot with something like Peace Machine to ensure that he doesn't get wiped off the board in one turn. If you can't kill him in one hit and he can stay alive, he can always regen back to top dial pretty easily.
And you can't use an ID card with him, right? Because he's not technically Hal Jordan, not technically Green Lantern.
Correct. They had the foresight to have his real name be Al Jordan and not Hal Jordan, or he would absolutely be a popular ID call-in.
Okay. Well, I'm a member of several different HeroClix trade sites, and it seems like everybody's willing to trade their arm and leg for the Green Arrow. What's this guy all about?
Well, that whole ability to shut off defenses, as far as I know, that actually gets through stock clicks. So that's going to be really, really big in shutting down a lot of these figures.
Davey, are you familiar with him?
Yeah, absolutely. He is it's amazing. The more arms you cut off of Green Arrow, the better he gets. So this is a one-armed Green Arrow from the Dark Knight Returns, very, very famous and popular Batman story. And this is a figure, you look at him, and if you ignore his traits and special powers, he's okay. He's a 12 attack, 3 damage, ranged combat expert. And with what Jay alluded to, which is his special attack power, if he hits a target, that target cannot use defense powers until its next turn. That's a big deal for a lot of things. There's still some debate on whether that's going to work with defense powers that are not from the character's dial, like Pick a Power or something from a Possessor. But even setting that aside, you have things like Doomsday. You have figures like Hulks that have stop clicks. This just shuts them off, and it's not only on his attack, it's for the rest of your turn. So I don't know that you're going to see this guy on many teams for 80 points. You're going to see him on almost every team for 5 points with the Green Arrow ID card. There's no reason not to sideline this figure, and if you come across a figure that has strong defensive powers or stop clicks, you hit him with this guy, he's not going to miss. He can go up to a 14 attack just with the powers on his dial. And then the rest of your team can just tear apart whatever that figure is because it will have no defense powers for the rest of that turn.
So this new Superman, is he popular because he's just Superman, or does this guy actually have some fate?
I really think it's because he's just Superman. I'm not seeing much of where he would be better than any other existing Superman. I can't see him playing him over Shifting Focus Superman. He's a little bit more expensive, definitely more expensive on top dial. Stats are pretty good. Has some potential not to be countered. That's usually the way you kill a Superman, is by just simple outwits. But I don't see it being consistent. If I'm reading this correctly, it's not a consistent defense against outwit.
Yeah, that's correct. And I like this dial. It is another 200 to 250 point, really powerful, really iconic Superman dial. But that trait has the potential to work against you 1/6 of the time. If you get a turn where you can't move or place this Superman, he's kind of a sitting duck, and you have to hope and assume that you will not roll that power again the following turn.
Okay. Well, are there any other commons, uncommons, rares, clicks that are easier to get that you can see people using in casual or competitive play from this set? Some sleepers, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. There is one common in particular that jumps out immediately. I've seen him played in sealed, so keep in mind this was with what is not generally considered to be a superb team, and that's 004 common Green Lantern. 55 points, Justice League team ability, and Green Lantern team ability, which alone is enough for 55 points. You've seen how much play Overdrive has seen, how much play Vanisher has seen. The ability to carry 8 grounded characters is unbelievable right now. And then in addition, he has a trait that gives you an opportunity based on a die roll to have 1 or 2 of your carried characters then make an attack after being carried. I honestly think we're going to see this guy on a lot of just fun JLA teams, and then a lot of guys are going to try to make that trait work to get across the map and get an alpha strike. People are playing the Captain America chase from Avengers Defenders War right now, and this is a better opportunity to get that alpha strike than even that figure is, I think.
Yeah, he looks really, really solid. I think my favorite common is going to be Kid Flash. I see him having a lot of potential with being able to have that full range after during hypersonic, and that gives him a 6 range on a hypersonic. After rules change, hypersonic's going to be really tough to be viable. Not being able to use objects with it, and plasticity, just shredding it there. Having 6 range with that hypersonic really, really gives him some mileage.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Jay. I played 2 of that figure in sealed this past weekend, and not only was he really good, he was a lot of fun to play. I know once rules change comes in, as you said, I'm looking for ranged pieces for my hypersonic pieces, and he's one that I would consider reaching for. There are some tricks you can play with his high noon trait as well, with his ability to hit and then get behind some cover, where the opponent may just not have the opportunity to shoot back at Kid Flash.
Okay, is there any other guys you wanted to cover before we move on?
I think both of the shifting focus figures are great. I think that's great that they continued this trend from a previous set on into this new set. I wish they would start doing that with all their sets now, giving me a reason to use some of my old pieces again. I think it's really, really great. That adding that Batman with, I believe, Perplex is really what Batman was missing from the other set. So now you've got a full round of decent support out of your shifting focus Batman. I think you might start seeing a little bit more play. And the Supermans are now superb with that last one adding again, because Hypersonic has taken a hit. Now being able to have the option to full move and quake is really, really nice.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. This Superman is probably the best of the shifting focus Superman as far as a standalone figure, and he is going to fit in so well with the others that are already my favorite Superman in the game.
Well, I think he's the only one that has Indom, right?
Yes, he is. So he has the ability to get up, make an attack on the second turn, and then shift after he takes the token into one of the variants that doesn't. It's a lot of flexibility from that.
Because that was a weakness of the prior shifting focuses. None of them had willpower or Indom, at least early on.
Yeah, Josh, you played them in several big tournaments, so you know better than any of us that was the trick with those figures, is often you were going to have at least 1 or 2 turns in a game where you were choosing between sitting tight and trying to turtle up on the defense style, or pushing and knowing you were going to take a click of damage because you had no way around it.
Yeah, and they usually, except for the one that can destroy the walls and use it as an object, the other ones don't really hit that hard. And when you're only attacking every other round, it kind of limits your offense. They're great defensive pieces, but now that you have Indom, you can do the 2 attacks in a row, which I think helps out a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed playing him by himself, and I absolutely cannot wait to play him with the other 4.
So let's roll on to 2 controversial changes. Well, I guess a non-change also. Jakeem Thunder and Goblin King. Basically, what I'm wondering is, we're going to take it from you're playing Jakeem Thunder and Goblin King. What are you looking to do to succeed? How are you looking to damage your opponent? Then we're going to reverse it, and we're going to look at how to play against those 2 guys.
Well, I think it's pretty clear cut as far as what to do. There are 2 figures that have access to move and attack and pretty much whatever attack power you need. So you're looking to get off that running shot inside early on, or even better if you can get into range with that running shot pulse wave and line up that single target. You're good to go. But then they can also turn around and pick defensive powers, shape change, stuff like that whenever they see a lot coming at them.
Tough options.
Yes, until that changes, the ability to just pick that combination gives both figures huge damage potential against a soft target that they just want to take out, and then take advantage of their picker power and what will most likely be a possessor that they have on them, or a piece of equipment, to just turtle up and run out points. These figures are equipped to do that better than almost anything in the game because they can customize their defenses so well. I would expect to see the symbiote more likely on Goblin King, because he does have reducers on his dial, so it's not as necessary for him to pick an Impervious from, say, Brainiac or Eclipso, whereas Jakeem greatly appreciates that option. But just being able to put Shape Change on Goblin King is a big plus for relatively low point investment, and also gives him the ability to break away and prevent opposing figures from breaking away once they get stuck next to him and can't do anything with the powers he's picking.
You'd also shut down their hypersonic super strength, and that's kind of really what you want to do when you see one of these guys on the board, is roll over there and wipe them as fast as possible. Even though you don't necessarily need the super strength at the 75-point dial on Goblin King, but still gives you the inclination, if you can pump more into attack, maybe use a lower point figure to try to knock him out early.
So the Goblin King goes 75, 175, 275.
Yeah, correct. If you see him at 275, it is probably someone that knows that Goblin King is a good figure, but it has not really put the time into figuring out how to get the most out of that. Because any single figure against these kind of teams is going to get worn down in a couple of turns. You just cannot get the action economy to compete.
So you think you're going to see more at 175 or 75? Because either way, he loses the power cosmic, correct?
Correct. I do think we're going to see him a lot at 75, because I don't think you can get a better piece at 75 points that can pick 2 powers. He is excellent support. He's an excellent secondary attacker. In worst case scenario, you have to pick willpower is one of your things. As Davey said earlier, he's already got reducers, so it's not like he's got a naked dial. If you compare him to Nico, who has 17 willpower up top, he's just hands down a better figure at the same point cost.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Goblin King at 75 is kind of our transition into Jakeem Thunder, because if you see Goblin King at 75, it is almost certainly because that player wanted to also fit Jakeem Thunder and just pick all the powers all the time, every turn.
And what's Jakeem Thunder going for now? I mean, how many points?
Oh, I was going to say, I think $7 billion. I'm not sure, but I believe he's 140 points. I've got to look at him. He is not a figure that I own or have ever aspired to go out of my way to own because of that green ring on the super rare.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's 140.
Yeah, that's what I thought also.
Yeah, he is. I'm looking at him now.
So if my math is correct, if you're playing both of them together, that's 215. In a normal 300-point tournament game, what do you think what are people going to try to fit in with the other 85 points?
I would go with a Green Lantern at 45, the SR from Joker's Wild, I believe.
He's 35, actually.
Okay, well, yeah, at 35, so I definitely think you will see one or two of those crammed in there.
What about Supreme Intelligence? He's going to be added to one of these guys?
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see Supreme Intelligence. He's low point investment for what he gives you. I think you're likely to see him on Jakeem, offering stealth and willpower, both of which Jakeem greatly appreciates. Being able to continue to go a couple turns in a row, and then not have to pick a power like stealth to give him some additional range protection. We may also see Supreme Intelligence on Goblin King at 175 if he shows up. With a Possessor and with Supreme Intelligence, particularly with Brainiac, you've got a Goblin King that is able to clear his own action tokens every turn. And for 200 points, I don't ever want to see that across the map from me.
Okay, so we figured out a little bit of what these guys can do. The next question is, how are we going to slow them down?
Well, right now, my plan to go against them is I'm probably just going to die. They're just going to come over and kill me. They're going to kill me dead. I really, trying to base him up. Again, that symbiote kind of shuts that down. But trying to get a figure up there to keep him tied up, while maybe you can pick off some of their other figures or keep them locked down so you can hit them. That would be my overall plan, trying to get across there and hit them before they can hit you. So that's kind of where I'm looking at. But I'll let you know if we have come up with anything successful after this weekend.
Yeah, I feel like there are a couple of answers right now. None of them are perfect. I could see a strong case for either playing a Peggy Carter on your team or playing a Shield ID card to bring her in, just because she's one of the few ways right now to turn off a power that's coming from off the dial. So if one of these guys picks a power that is just going to absolutely wreck your day, you do have the ability to turn that off either for one turn for 5 points or as many turns as you can manage to keep Peggy alive. But even that's not perfect. If you play her, you have to have something in place so that you can do enough damage to remove that figure from the map in 1 or 2 turns, because that's probably all you're going to have.
Yeah, agreed. You got to be able to hit hard if you're relying on Peggy, because otherwise she becomes the number one target.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that we are in a weird place right now with these two figures, because the watch list has come out and has changed Goblin King, stripped his power cosmic at his 2 lower point levels, which is a loss of willpower effectively right now, but will be a huge deal after the rules change comes through, and will, I think, make both of these guys much easier to manage when you can just stack outwit and just pick whatever you want and outwit it on either figure. They will never be as hard to manage as they are right now.
Do you think using the Firestorm ID card is worth it, and you want to explain how that works?
It could be. It's a little bit of a kind of a corner case, because it is a figure specifically designed to remove equipment from characters, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the dial in front of me quite yet. I'm working on that. Yeah, here we go. So you're referring to the OP kit Firestorm, right? I'm assuming. Yeah. Yeah, when Firestorm hits a single character with a ranged attack, which he's likely to do, he's an 11 attack with a perplex, you can do no damage and then remove some equipment or an object that character is holding, and they have a light object instead. That has some potential, because it will not do anything to Supreme Intelligence, but it will give you the ability to strip them of a Brainiac or an Eclipso or a Symbiote. And there are a lot of teams that were popular last year a lot of the carry teams with Doc Ock or with Clarion that just their day was just ruined when they saw shape change on a major figure, because one good roll on the opponent's side and the turn's basically over.
Agreed. I do think he's a little bit pricey as a call-in, though. That's going to be his limitation at that 115 point mark there. A little bit tougher to call in.
Yeah, and I hate to say this because it just kind of plays into some of the reputation that competitive play gets sometimes and ignores the good things about it, but the best counter for Jakeem and Goblin King right now is to play your own Jakeem and Goblin King. And one figure that I didn't think about that you may see with either or both of them is Peace Machine, which is a figure that I think is going to be real popular because the ability to prevent anything but 3 damage going through means that you're guaranteed a couple of turns to take either one out, and they can always regenerate if they have the opportunity to run away.
I know something you and I talked about earlier, Davy, was doing a combination of outwitting their flight ability and using some type of a smoke marker, smoke cloud, or something else that produces difficult terrain or hindering terrain.
Yeah, that is an option you've got if you, and even with Goblin King having Power Cosmic, which is gone now, so not as much of an issue, you can outwit their flight ability until the rules change. And then if you have a figure with Smoke Cloud, something that comes to mind is the Storm that can do it for free, or Barrier with the Green Lantern that has the ability to do Barrier for cheap and then do the wall marker. Either one of those gives you the ability to lock down one or both of these figures if you've got that outwit available. And if you do that, you force them to either burn a turn doing nothing or choose phasing and move out of position, which is a turn they didn't attack, and in my opinion, that's a bonus.
Right.
Yeah, because you're really going to have to beat them, you're going to have to outpace them, and you're going to have to make them waste actions.
Yeah, it's also a strategy that could net you a win in the event that you're able to score points off of, say, an ID card or a support figure, knock it out, and then just use Barrier or Smoke Cloud to keep them from getting with you until the clock runs out. Everybody hates to take a win that way, but against figures like this, you do what you have to, and you may not have a choice other than to try to stall them out until you can get an advantage.
Okay, guys.
Well, my bit of advice is going to be often new players will see these figures and just want to go out there and play them on the day of the tournaments. And I really, when you're picking a power, you need to really practice, know what your options are, really study that pack, know what powers are available, know what counters are what. Don't just think you're going to show up with these winning guys and win. It's not that. It's still the player. It's still the player knowing what to choose at the right time. And it's even more decisions on the player, even more so, because you got to know the right combos.
Maybe anything else?
No, I think that's good advice for new players. I think it's just playing, going and grabbing Goblin King and slapping a Peace Machine with them and borrowing somebody's Brainiac is going to give you a good team, but it's not going to give you the ability to go out and win with them. So, be smart with these if you're playing them, and if you're playing against them, take the points you can and then just focus on not giving up any points, which I know sounds like really simple advice, but that gets lost sometimes in all of the high-level strategy. Just like try to get some points somewhere and then just run away. Because like Jay said, the counterplay for a lot of teams is just going to be to die when these guys are across the map from you, particularly for a newer or a less tournament experienced player.
All right, well, let's move on to our final topic. I know both of you guys have been playing for a while now. Both of you have been playing in tournaments. This final topic is kind of Tournament 101. I want to know from both of you guys opinions on how to get ready for a tournament, whether it's a local tournament, sealed, constructed, major tournament. What are some of the things you guys do to get ready? I think this can help out both new players and more experienced players.
I think one thing I'll say, and this applies to casual tournaments, but particularly to a competitive tournament, is if you can help it, don't ever let a tournament be the first time you've played a team, particularly if it's a big tournament that has something on the line. Get some practice in with a team. I always tell people you will play better with a less meta or competitively constructed team that you have experience with than you will with the absolute just top-notch best figures available and you have no idea how to run them together. There's a lot to be said for getting constant games in with the same figures. I mean, you look at the top players that come and travel to the tournaments like we're going to have at States this weekend. These guys will play the same team for months, and they will iterate on it and they'll make changes. But the core of the team, by the time they show up for that tournament, they've played it dozens of times. And that is a huge advantage when you slap your guys on the table and it's the first or second time you've played them.
That's 100% correct. Don't just show up and because a figure's good, expect that it's going to do good for you. You have to know the ins and outs of it. It's just like playing a sport. You got to go to practice. You can't just show up to the game or else things aren't going to work. I also say my advice is study the game. You can start to look and figure out what pieces people are going to use and then have almost no surprises going into a tournament. Before a sealed set comes out, you can start looking up spoilers on the figures, seeing what looks like people are going to play, figuring out what is your best chance of pulling. I always review all the comments whenever I'm doing sealed and saying, okay, I got a strong chance of pulling these guys, so which ones are going to be the best out of that set? For constructed, you can look up what's winning the ROCs, what's winning the WKOs, and see what people are using. Then you can kind of focus on that counter method. So that's what I do. When I'm really getting into the competitive scene, I do a lot of study time.
Yeah, I think some of the more obvious stuff that we overlook is make sure you have your list when it's constructed ready the night before. You don't want to be looking for those random 2 pieces when you have to leave in 30 minutes, and then you're going to start yelling at your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband, and this is going to be a bad day for everybody.
That reminds me a lot of running tournaments with lantern batteries, and it's like, oh God, where's this construct that I need? Because I had 400 pieces on a team, and just trying to remember where they all were. It's like, oh God, did the dog eat it? What happened to this thing overnight? Where are my scissors? And just not being able to find it. But Jay, something you mentioned about studying the game, like for any level of tournament, sealed, casual, constructed, competitive, just go on HC Realms and look at what people are playing in similar style tournaments. There's ROC report after ROC report if you want to see what's winning, what's being played, and then from there it's a pretty simple step to reach out and find out how these teams work and what's being played. Even if it's not anything you have any interest in playing, it can get you in the mindset of someone who does play that team and get you to start preparing for how to handle that.
Yeah, that's excellent, because I like to try to pick apart what everybody's running. So that the only way you can do that is do it Batman style, sit down, do the bookwork, and come at them with a new plan. That's the way to roll with it.
Yeah, you cannot control the dice. You can't control who your opponents are, but the things you can control, you need to make sure you're doing a good job on that. For example, if you're playing some of the older clicks that don't have the clicks listed on the back of the card, it may be hard for you to remember or to memorize all the powers and all the numbers on your click, but you should at least know where the first KO click is. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Know when your figure is going to be KO'd, and if it's a figure that is earning its points on 1 or 2 important powers, make absolutely sure you know which clicks it does and does not have those powers on. Last thing in the world you want to do is show up with like, oh yeah, I got my Nick Furies, I'm gonna roll everybody here, and then you push them both to click 2, or they take a 1 click of damage, and all of a sudden they're 9 range figures with precision, strike, and perplex, and all of your team building and strategy is for nothing because it's just a guy that shoots people.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like you guys said, and I couldn't agree more. It's better to play a list that you're more familiar with, that may not be as powerful on paper, than a list you've never played before, but could be top notch.
Yeah, that's something I try to preach to our guys when I have the chance. Full disclosure, I'm probably not playing in states. I'm hoping to be there and help out. But just pick a team. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it almost certainly will not be the team that you come up with on paper the first time will not be the team you end up running, but it will get you started thinking on how to improve it. And as you play it, you start seeing, okay, this figure's not carrying its weight. I'm leaving myself open to this on an opponent's side. What can I bring in to counter this? So you may take this piece and swap it for that piece, and you end up with something that is a highly polished version of what you started with, but you have played it through every step of that development, and better than anyone you're playing against, you will know how that team is supposed to work.
I think another trap that I personally fall into is the Princess Bride and the Poisoner trap, where
Yes, yep.
where I want to play Green Lantern, the Joker's Wild Green Lantern, but I know not to play him because people are going to play the Shield Hulk that's going to smash through my barrier. But then again, I started thinking, well, they're not going to think that I'm going to play Green Lantern because I know they're going to play the Hulk, so I'm going to play it anyway.
Yeah, I've been there. I
Yeah.
clearly cannot choose the ID card in front of you.
So you can kind of drive yourself crazy with that.
Yeah, and you said this, Josh. You cannot control what your opponent's going to show up with. So all you can do is try to give yourself the team on the table that gives you the best opportunities against the widest range of the field. There's going to be something that beats your team. You just have to have an idea of what it is and try to plan for it.
Yeah, another thing is, do your checklist. Make sure you got everything. Make sure everything you have is for the format you're playing in. You don't want to bring in a out-of-date map or out-of-date character. It's going to get you cute, possibly, the very first turn.
Oh, and for new guys, I do recommend bring a map. Don't show your maps. Get a map that you're familiar with. Even if you don't know how to shut down your opponent, at least you know your own map. Definitely not give him the extra option to pick a map that he wants. So have at least one map with you.
Yeah, just make it simple. Like this thing. Shoot from afar. Running up and punching you in the face. Put some stuff behind.
Yeah, and pick that map and then just play all your games on that map, because there's a lot to be said for knowing before you even put the map on the table exactly what your first turn is going to be and where your guys are going to end up that first turn. It takes a little bit of that first turn planning out of your mind if you've got a set play order, and that only can happen on the same map over and over.
And I think a good rule of thumb, especially for the new players, is if it turns out being a 3-round tournament, you're probably going to play somebody that's not quite as good as you, somebody that's better than you, and somebody that's close to your level. And I think the difference between going 1 and 2 and 2 and 1 is finding a way to beat that person that's close to your level, because you're probably going to lose to the more experienced player, and you're probably going to beat the player that you have more experience than. So the tournament usually ends up to where you're going to get that one game playing somebody that's equal in skill level and experience, and that's the game you need to win to have a successful tournament.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I know when I go to a tournament where we're going to play 3 rounds, my goal is to go 2 and 1. If I can. At a 4-round tournament, my goal is to go 3 and 1. I kind of figure, okay, I may lose a game in here somewhere. If I don't get a bye round, I'm okay not going undefeated. I'll have opportunities to make up points, but that's a big deal. Is that second round is going to be somebody that scored similarly to you in the first round, and you're going to have somebody that also is riding on that success and had a good first round, and you've got to find a way to beat that team.
All right, guys.
I think that as for my part, that does it for a first time. I just appreciate anybody listening, and look forward to feedback and having more opportunities to talk clicks.
Yeah, we'd like to have a much longer show, but unfortunately, because of the transition period, we don't want to get into a lot of stuff that's going to change in a month, if less than that. So we're kind of holding off onto longer topics until we get the rules change.
Yeah, once Thor comes out, we'll have enough material to record hours every week and still not touch base on everything. So I'm, in a way, looking forward to that, and in a way, I'm kind of scared of that.
When is that supposed to come out? Does anybody know?
It is slated for August, so I'm expecting, well, at worst, it's a month from right now. So we have one more major tournament with our current rules, and then whatever casual games we play, but no more sets will release under the current rules.
Yeah, so I think Davy is going to be coaching and helping us build lists, but he's going to skip, well, if you guys don't know that the ROC tournaments are coming up this weekend and next weekend, and I think Davy's going to skip out and just help us build lists, which he's really good at, and Jay and I will be playing in our local state tournament, and I will be going next door the next day to play in the Louisiana tournament. So next show, we can go over the lists and how we did, things we learned. I think we'd have a really good time with that.
Yeah, I agree. One last word of advice to our new players: don't be afraid to go play or attend a tournament like this. It will be overwhelming, but you will learn so much seeing people play the game at this level and seeing how they build their team. So go out with the mindset of having a good time, and you will.
And we have like the friendliest player base out of any game that I've seen. So that's, you go there to hang out. You're spending $20 on 4 to possibly 8+ hours of entertainment there. So don't think about, hey, I just lost this money. it's the experience, and you're going to learn from these guys that beat you. It's so much easier to learn while you're there and seeing what they do.
Yeah, and I think last year we had a guy who was in his first or second month of playing make it to the final round.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Anything can happen. That was really neat to see.
As long as you're rolling dice, anything can happen, yeah.
That's exactly right.
Unless they're my rock dice, ones and twos. That's what can happen.
Yeah. Anything can happen because these sixes look like ones, or vice versa. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that next week. That will give us a lot to talk about. How do you guys, and hopefully Steve will be on with us next week, go over what you played, how you did. We'll be able to do a full breakdown of the Mississippi State Tournament. Josh, you'll be able to report on the Louisiana State Tournament, and I think that'll give us a lot to talk about and give people something to listen to and kind of compare notes with their own experiences.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. Remember, this is issue number 1 of the Avengers League, and we'll be back after next week's ROC State tournaments, and we'll have another show for you.